In a world where talent is evenly distributed, but venture capital is concentrated in coastal silos, smart startup money is heading for the Midcontinent. Welcome to the Midcon Markup, a podcast that uncovers the inspiring stories of our visionary tech entrepreneurs and the investors who believe in them. I'm your host, Cody Merrill with Cortado Ventures. Listen, learn, and make your Midcon Markup.
Welcome to another episode of the Midcon Markup podcast. Today, we are very grateful to be joined by Trent Smith, who is the first LP in Cortado and also a portfolio company founder of Apricot Technologies. He's gotten off to an extremely hot start, lots of interesting AI observations and a play in health tech that Trent can unravel for us. But before we get to that, Trent, can you just tell us about your illustrious background, starting from childhood and then all the way up through national champion?
Been really lucky. I was born with good genetics, I guess. So, first kind of athletic venture was Taekwondo when I was a little kid, and won a Junior Olympic Championship in that. Went to high school and won 2 out of 4 state championship games. I got to OU when they were terrible, and then won a national championship there. And then I was fortunate to get to play in the NFL, and then kind of rolled right into business where I've now started and sold. I think this is my 5th company, Apricot. So the others have all been divested of, trying to just make the next one bigger than the last.
Well, can you walk us through a little bit more of your professional career trajectory? You were a professional football player, that ended, and then you've had a very interesting sequence where it seems like you've learned something from each of the previous steps, and then that has steered you closer and closer to this current big opportunity.
It's always been in healthcare services. So the first one was a medical staffing company that I sold to one of my partners. Then we got into correctional healthcare. Wound up growing that from nothing, and I say my whole life's been kind of like a Forrest Gump story. Everything's just kind of worked out, and really lucky. I mean, there's a lot of hard work that goes into it, but things just always seem to happen right when they're supposed to happen, and maybe that's just a result of being prepared and working hard. But sold that to a private equity, and then I got into home health and hospice in 2017, and just fell in love with the industry and the people and the nurses, and through that kind of challenging kind of startup of a traditional healthcare services firm. There's some real problems that needed to be solved that hadn't been able to be solved. The technology didn't exist to solve them, and then thanks to Nathaniel in Cortado, I discovered ChatGPT before anybody else did, and at least around here, and thought that technology could solve a lot of our problems, and it turns out that we were really, really right about that.
So can you share more about your experience running a home health company? As venture investors, we always love to know that the founder has deep domain experience, and what were those day-to-day problems that were really grinding your gears in your business?
Well, there were a lot. So, whenever I discovered LLMs and wondered aloud if it could help things in our industry, we did the research. And so I hired a third party to come in and another Portco of you guys, 19 days, and GitWit, to do a study to see if and where they thought this technology could help. Because I'm not a tech guy. I've always done service businesses. I've never had a product company. And I really love having a product company, by the way. But basically, after a 4-month ethnographic study of our industry, we found 60 different places where this tech could, a product could be built using this technology to solve an issue. And so some of those are, it takes a nurse, a registered nurse, close to 2 hours to document one, new patient visit. we have Medicare Advantage eating our industry. We have a massive nursing shortage that's exacerbated in our industry by the amount of documentation required. We have wage inflation crushing us. We have, in addition to Medicare Advantage, the reason that's bad is because that comes with like a 40 to 50% reduction in revenue for the home health care operator. And then, because there's fewer nurses willing to do this job, the ones that are left are getting paid a lot more. And because as an agency contracting with insurance agencies and the federal government, Medicare, we have no pricing power to offset any of those rising costs. And meanwhile, the federal government and CMS in particular has their head stuck in the sand. And even though all of our costs are going up, they think it's a good idea to reduce our wages. They just came out last week and said that they're proposing almost a 4% pay cut to the home health care industry next year, which is mind-blowing because every American wants to be cared for in their home as much as they can instead of a facility. Caring for a patient in their home is significantly cheaper than caring for a patient in any other type of care setting or facility. And it seems like we're the ones getting punished the most, and they keep moving the goalposts. They keep changing the rules. It's just a massive perfect storm of holy crap issues. It's what are we even doing in this industry? And it looks like Apricot is able to solve with our technology, most all of those issues.
In terms of the baby boomers going through retirement, wanting to stay in their homes as long as possible, what does the population demographics say for the growth trend for home health for the next 2 decades?
I mean, it's accelerating massively. I don't know what the exact numbers are off the top of my head, but something like 10,000 people per week are being added to the Medicare rolls, which is defined as someone who's 65 and older and enrolls in Medicare when they turn 65. Most home health patients are 75 years or older, and they have knee replacements, they have CHF, diabetes, mental decline. There's a whole bunch of things to start breaking down when age starts to set in, and they want to be taken care of in their homes. And so it's a growing market as far as total patients. But the problem is how Medicare has started outsourcing over the last decade to Medicare Advantage and other private payers, for-profit entities. And so home health agencies like mine can't afford to provide the services to take care of them. And so a lot of these patients that should be receiving these services in their home and getting better are actually just not getting the care that they need instead. And so Apricot is able to, by drastically reduce the amount of time it takes a nurse to document. We don't do it for any of that stuff. It makes suggestions. There's humans in the loop the whole way, fully compliant with all Medicare conditions of participation, everything. But when you remove this massive pain point in our industry, you have much larger capacity as an agency to take on more patients and even worse paying patients because it's essentially zero cost revenue growth.
So before Apricot, what was it like running a home health company, trying to balance a portfolio of profitable Medicare referrals and unprofitable Medicare Advantage referrals that you felt obligated to take as a rite of passage to earn the more lucrative Medicare referrals?
Yeah, I mean, you just have to take, everyone, we call them loss leaders. So, sometimes to get your foot in the door at a hospital or a doctor's office or, any type of referral source, you're having to take patients that you're going to lose money on. And you've got to really monitor that, we call it the Medicare percentage of your census. The number of patients that you have. So you have, 100 patients in a branch. You really, really, really need minimum 67 of those to be traditional Medicare. And the fact of the reality is that there's probably not 70% of the patients in a given geographic area that are even on traditional Medicare anymore. And you go to other parts of the country and it's 20% of the patients are. So you have to win by volume and being really, really, really big. And so it's hard for the independent operator to really turn like a decent profit. Like the margins have been squeezed so greatly and no one's really come along with any solutions to like address it. And we did.
So what is that reimbursement differential between Medicare Advantage and Medicare?
There's a formula, and it's like episodic versus per visit. But if you just think about like the cost, the revenue generated to see one patient one time, traditional Medicare is roughly $200, and Medicare Advantage is roughly $105 to $110, and it varies geographically and by rural and urban and all these things. But it is a 40 to 50% reduction in revenue, just like right off the top.
So
same patient, same care, same number of visits. It's a horrible system.
So by reducing the documentation burden for your nurses, you're cutting several hours out of their workflow, increasing the quality of the notes, the quality of the care for the patient. But then that's also allowing you to take on a larger patient caseload, and each nurse can see more patients, nurses can make more money. And
Apricot gives customers the ability to see more patients. It also gives them the ability to right-size their agency, to be more efficient with what they actually have. We give them the ability, the operator, the agencies, they still have to go and operate their business. We can't go do that for them. If we figure it out, like, we'll really have something. But right now, it's just Apricot gives you the ability to go and do those things. And we're finding our customers, like, love having this kind of like two-way go, do I grow my census? Do I, by reducing this documentation time? Or another like kind of hidden fact is that when you solve this problem, like, we have the best job in healthcare and home healthcare for nurses, because they're like autonomous. They're able to be outside. They can drive around. They're in their own car, or maybe a company car, and they get to set their own schedule and get to do the one thing that they love the most, which is heal people. And they get to do it in their home. They get to meet a lot of interesting people. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's like really enjoyable. But nurses love that autonomy. As opposed to being in a hospital setting. You have a doctor looking over your shoulder and whatever. So, but we've never been able to capitalize on that as an industry because of this. The documentation time just keeps getting higher and higher and higher. Like, it's never going to get better. They're never going to make you report less than we are now. It's always going to be more. And so when you remove that, like, we have now created like the best nursing job in all of healthcare for agencies that utilize technology like Apricot.
So can you walk us through the user journey before Apricot of what a nurse had to do, just follow the patient flow, and then what is it with Apricot? How much faster and how much higher quality?
You're required to spend a certain amount of time in the home with the patient. So that doesn't change, but the experience of that time in the home is different now. So prior to Apricot, a nurse goes in, she has an old, tablet of some sort that, some EMR has like forced them to use, electronic medical record system. And then the nurse is basically like spending their time with the patient, like with a phone in between them and the patient's face. Like, there's no real intimacy. They're having to tap away on this thing. It seems like they're texting the whole time. Horrible experience for the patient, even though people love, the in-home healthcare. And then when they leave that visit, they have another 2 hours of work to do, just generated by that one 60 to 90-minute visit. And so they're going home at night after doing, several of these and having to spend like 2 to 6 hours, like, working at home on their tablet, away from their family, incredibly tedious, on very old technology, on non-user-friendly like tablets. Like, some EMRs will only let you use like an Android tablet. Some only let you use a computer or a laptop, and it's just really it's like they tried to design like the worst possible way of doing it, which in 2010 was probably a great way of doing things. But technology's gotten better now, and so have the devices and hardware. And so Now, with Apricot, they go into the patient's home. They're fully prepared for the visit because they just have flipped up in the app on their phone. They've seen the patient they're about to go see. They've done a very quick research on that patient to know what they're walking into. They spend the same 60 to 90 minutes in the home, face to face, having a conversation, getting to know, because these nurses are spending time they're part social worker, they're part nurse, they're part marriage counselor, they're part friend, they're part, they wear a lot of hats in these homes. I can tell you dozens of stories that just will blow your mind about what nurses have to deal with. And so when they finish that visit with the patient, they're writing in a notebook. They're maybe taking pictures of what we call artifacts in the home. Maybe we're recording the entire interaction between the patient and the nurse. And then we're taking all that data and information and feeding it into Apricot, which is powered by an LLM, and processing that data and then asking the nurse a bunch of questions about it. And so we call it the post-start of care interview, where the nurse will leave the home. She's got her device that she used to capture the artifacts. And she opens the app and clicks start, and Apricot starts asking her questions. And she just answers them as if you were talking to another human, except this human's name is Apricot, and it has all the knowledge and data for every nursing textbook, the ICD-10 coding manual, the 485-page Medicare how to fill out the OASIS documentation. It remembers every single word. It essentially has an eidetic memory. It remembers every word from the patient visit. It remembers exactly what the nurse saw and recorded. It can look at every single artifact or upload that the nurse has given it, pictures of a med list, emergency evacuation plan, initial plan of care, all these things. And then ask the nurse a bunch of questions to fill out this incredibly difficult 500 plus question document set that has everything from radio buttons to free text fields to multi-select questions, drop downs, multiple choice, and long form narrative essays that have to be completed for this one patient. And Apricot asks the nurse questions for about 5 to 15 minutes. The nurse simply answers, no differently than I'm talking to you. And then Apricot says, okay, great. Here's all of your documentation completely filled out. The nurse reviews it, signs off on it. The whole thing takes 15 minutes, and the nurse is off to see the next patient.
So previous to Apricot, it would take the nurse how many hours?
Roughly 2 hours per visit to document the start of care, yeah. And now it takes 15 minutes. So and it's a totally different experience.
So that's not an iterative improvement. That's
massive.
Yes.
It's game changer.
Different order of magnitude. Previous to Apricot, about how many patients could one home health nurse service?
On average, it varies based on geographic density, drive time, and things. But typically, one registered nurse in home health care can handle between, say, 18 to 22 patients.
And then with Apricot, how many
with
patients?
Apricot, they can handle north of 30.
Wow.
And like it because, they're done when they go home for work. They don't have to do any more documentation.
So they get more of what they enjoy, which is
helping
personal
patients.
interactions with patients, making a difference in their lives, and less of what they hate. How has that impacted employee retention? And just what is the market for nurses? What is the market like for home health nurses?
Yeah.
I hear it's a bloodbath.
Yeah, it's hyper competitive. When agencies are in a bind, they have to pay substantially above market rates to get a nurse to come and take care of patients. It's really hard to grow when you can't find nurses. But you asked about, what's the market like generally. So yes, hyper competitive. Very few of them to go around, nowhere near enough. The ones that you do have to pay more than what you can really afford to and find other ways to save money, other places so that you can turn a profit as a business person. And then on average, home health care registered nurses turn over an average of 30% annually per agency. And about half of those wind up leaving the home healthcare segment forever. And so it's actually way worse. When you lose a nurse, you only get half of one coming back into the system. And so and that was the same at at my agency, Essentra, we have had close to 35 to 40% annual registered nurse turnover since I've been in this industry for almost a decade. And since we've implemented Apricot at our agency, Essentra, Home Health and Hospice, that our turnover has gone to zero. For the last 6 months, we had 0 nurses resign, quit, or leave, which is, we have 145, 150 employees, and most of those are nurses. That is a massive number. And when you start adding up the cost of training and replacing a nurse and the recruitment effort, how long it takes, the opportunity cost that you've lost, it's thousands and thousands of dollars every time a nurse leaves. And it's so much more rewarding to give good nurses, a tool that they can use that changes their life so dramatically in such a positive way. And two, it's way cheaper to give good nurses good raises than it is to go and have to hire a whole new nurse just because your agency added 10 more patients. And so, it's changing nurses' lives financially. It's changing their lives with their time they're able to spend with their friends and family or doing their hobbies. And we've basically removed the worst part of the job for home health care nurses. And I think that's why we're seeing the reaction in the market that we have.
Can you share a little bit more about quality and how leveraging the LLM in conjunction with the nurse, with that final human approval, has impacted quality over all of the historical data in your company?
Yeah, it just doesn't miss. It doesn't forget something. It doesn't misscore items. It doesn't we have a team of clinical nurses that work at Apricot, and their only job is to make Apricot better every day, however they can, with whatever they can think of. And so when you think about Apricot as the world's best nurse, and you have a team of other awesome, badass nurses training this new technology. You tell it something once and it never forgets. So if it makes a mistake, it's we're not doing the work for the nurse. We're augmenting the nurse's ability. It's really more of assisting it as a scribe, really. And taking all this information and filling it out and presenting it back to the nurse for them to approve or change or edit or whatever they want to do. But our clinical scores are improving rapidly. There's 6 main value-based quality metrics that Medicare bases how much they're going to pay us on. And ever since we started using Apricot, those have just started going up and up, which directly affects revenue.
Right. Can you speak to us a little bit about the business side of things? The value proposition is incredible for nurses, for home health companies, for patients. But you're in business to make money and to help people.
Right.
How's the growth gone? What are customers saying? And have you gotten any feedback from nurses?
So we have a bunch of good stories about nurses. So I'll start with that. So one of the first nurses that ever used this technology ever, which we created this.
Yeah.
We were the first to market with this technology, using it this way. Was that, to do 2 startup cares in one day, crazy. This nurse did 5. And she called me and said, I've worked for you for 7 years, and I have a 5-year-old daughter at home. And she goes, I went home. I usually come home after work, and my daughter, who's only 5, already knows to say, and she used to ask me, can you play dolls with me? Can you watch a movie with me? And now she's at 5 years old, and I was I wish you could play with me. I wish you could watch a movie with me, but I know you have to have your screen time, meaning document and chart on their tablets. And she said, so yesterday I did my first starter care in Apricot, and it went really well. So the next day I scheduled 5, which doing 2 in one day is asking a lot. And doing 2 a day for 2 days in a row is you have to give a nurse a break after doing that. And so she scheduled 5 for herself. She did the 5, and then her documentation was done when she got home, thanks to Apricot. And then she got home, and her daughter started to say the thing that she always says, I wish you could. And she goes, actually, baby, tonight, whatever you want to do. And so she said, we made dinner. we ate it with her dad and siblings, and we played dolls and had a tea party, and then we fell asleep on the couch cuddling watching Moana. She was the greatest Tuesday night I've ever had as a home health nurse. And by this time she's like crying and like getting very emotional and like on like borderline sobbing, and finally says, you have changed my life, and you have to you can't just keep this to yourself, because Apricot was originally just supposed to be an internal tool. Like, we weren't building it to sell. Like, we have this major problem. I think this technology can fix it. Oh my God, we're right. This is going to change my company. And then this nurse calls and says this thing after using it like literally like for 2 days, and says you have to give this to all nurses everywhere. And so and I'm crying, and I'm just like, oh my God. And so I thought about it and talked to my wife, and she was like, you do have to give this to everybody. And so we changed the name from Jane, which was the original name, my daughter's middle name, of the tool, the internal Centra tool, to Apricot. And named it Apricot because that's the traditional color of nurse graduation regalia. We also wanted the colors to be really warm and inviting for nurses, and like to really like define it. Like we said, when we want nurses to see this and use it, we want them to feel like this was not just made for them, but is like literally like a product thank you card for the nurses in this industry. And we're on product 1A of probably 20 that we're going to build specifically for this industry, using this technology in ways that it's never been used before, and trying to find 10x to 100x improvements like every step along the way, but never forgetting like this is for the nurse.
That's always great, getting that emotional feedback where, like, in tech, it's not enough to build a product that people like.
Yeah.
You have to build a product that people love, where if it were taken from them, they would hunt you down and they would fight you to get it back.
There was a major bug in Apricot like that first week.
Yeah.
Like around that same time. And so we actually had just given it to that entire branch in Kingfisher.
Yeah.
And we took it away from them for 2 days to fix something. Like, so brand new thing that's never been built before. Like, oh, we got to repaint that wall, like if you're building a house. And like I thought my nurses were going to cut me. Like they were like really upset. Like the only thing that kept them from like actually like harming me, I think, is the fact that they knew they were getting it back on Monday.
Wow, that's a great positive indicator that you're onto something special. Okay, so that's the feedback from nurses. What about some feedback from early customers? What have they said qualitatively, and then in terms of contracts, patient lives? What's your current growth trajectory?
I won't share a lot of the actual money numbers, but it's going real good. We have more patients than we know what to do with. I actually just came straight in here from doing a demo with one of the top 10 largest home health companies in our country, and told them, right, like the first thing I'm telling these customers, like when they talk to us, is like, before we get started, before I give you this demo, before I talk to you about it and kind of show you my thing, I just want you to know, like, I'm not going to be able to onboard you until probably late November, early December at this point. And, I know you're a big company, so you're probably going to want to do all your diligence on things. You're going to have to give me some grace. We're trying to hire, 20 people right now. We're in the middle of a second fundraise that's going crazy good, all with like customers and industry partners. Like we have customers prepaying to be higher on the wait list. I'm flying to 2.5 hours away and tomorrow to meet with a new customer who also would like to put in like a substantial sum. And this has all happened since we kind of came out of stealth mode June 1st. And so like literally in the next like 5.5 to 6 weeks, my life is completely changed. I have never experienced, the closest thing I can say this is like, October of 2000 at OU, when we went from like nobody thought we were worth a damn to like at the end of that month we were the number one team in the country. Just an absolute skyrocket trajectory, and that ended with the championship. So I hope we can finish this off with one too, whatever that looks like in business.
Well, you've never had a problem attracting luck. And so I do want to circle back on that conversation that you mentioned earlier about how you feel like there's some level of luck, but a lot of startup advice is centered around this idea that you should actively make decisions that increases your surface area of luck. Like, how prescriptive have you been throughout your career, or have you just been walking around the maze as a two-dimensional ant and like interacting with the world and then following whatever opportunity is hot?
I've always been really ambitious. I've always really, really, really loved competition. I seem to do well with an enemy to vanquish. I've always been surrounded by a ton of love and support and people telling me I could do, especially my mom and dad, like, you can do anything, like whatever you want to do. And I think I just kind of hit the genetic lottery when I was born, and then the geographical lottery on where I was born, and the time lottery on when I was born. And so you combine all those things and then actually add like ambition and drive and want to be better and you want to change things. And I look back across my life and it's like, you know, every dream that I've ever had has come true to some degree, and some to a very, very, very large degree. I wanted to not just play football at OU, I wanted to be part of the group that brought the glory back, and we did that. Even though I played in the NFL, that was never a dream or a goal, but I played long enough to get my pension in retirement, and which is pretty cool. Not particularly proud of my NFL career, but very honored to have been selected and drafted and played and all that stuff. And then in business, like, I just didn't want to be poor. So I liked nice things. I wanted to be able to buy my wife a nice car, and was fortunate to have saved a lot of money and because of my wife and not blown it when I was in the NFL, and have that money to start and then very quickly lose nearly all of it starting my first company. And great partners in that. My partner in a lot of my companies, pretty much all of them, with I guess he's a partner in Apricot technically, he's an investor, but John Eccles, big time politician here in Oklahoma, and one of my best friends since childhood. He's the same way, and just surrounding yourself with people who push to make you better. YPO's been a huge part of that journey in my professional life. Just like, I don't know, like these opportunities seem to present themselves to me at times where I have the means, the energy and the capacity and the, desire to want to take advantage of them. Like I wasn't looking to build a tech product company or a tech startup. It always sounded cool, and I always thought that if I had been born in California, I probably would have done that. But making good money and serving people and service businesses is always rewarding, and I enjoyed it. And so this is my first foray into a product, but if Nathaniel doesn't introduce me to OpenAI when he did, I would have been too late. If I hadn't have noticed, if I didn't have the experience of growing up as a kid with no technology. I was born in '79, so no technology I had a beeper in high school. I thought that was pretty cool. Like zero technology, like corded phones. Like I remember my dad had got a bag phone. It was like and he had a screen and an old car. I thought that was pretty cool. But no internet till my senior year of high school, really, is when I first saw it. And then email day one of college, which was brand new. Like I remember watching Good Morning America for some reason at that time. And they were like, are you going to get an email address? And it's like, no, that's never going to take off. And it's like, now it's like.
Our lives.
I remember the first text that I ever sent. I remember what the first iPhone looked like. I remember Netflix shipping DVDs to my house. And so even though like that first thing of ChatGPT that I used was not very intelligent, it was creative, but it like made stuff up. It was kind of racist. Like it was just like, it was terrible. Honestly, it was unusable. But I also knew like, well, I remember Netflix shipping me DVDs. I remember the iPhone didn't have an app store or forward-facing camera. And I've seen what that stuff's done. I remember dial-up internet. I remember Napster. now I have Spotify, like I remember, touching 8 4 times to hit T, or V or whatever on the old flip phones. And so when I saw this, when I figured out what an LLM was, how they worked, what a transformer's role played in that, why it was actually exponentially growing, I knew that it was only a matter of time, probably a very short amount of time, before that thing was like, big time. And I was like, I think this is just a commodity. I think I can let someone else cross the Sierras and build the LLM. Like, I'll just use their thing to go build some like really cool stuff with that actually like change lives, and that I can, make money for investors too. I never really understood product market fit. It wasn't a term that you use in healthcare services.
Yeah.
But if product market fit is making nurses cry with happiness, improving patient care, getting access to care to more people, and helping home health agencies, beat back Medicare's advances on our bottom line, then we've got it.
Growth trajectory is on fire right now with home health. Where are you envisioning the wedge opportunity for other bigger markets down the line?
We'll do more for sure, but there's private duty nurses, there are hospice nurses, there are behavioral health nurses, there are psychiatric and pediatric nurses. There's a lot of nurses that we can help, and I welcome entrants into the space. I hope that they are helping nurses and want to help nurses as much as I do. They are actually heroes. We should build things for heroes that are better than non-heroes. And so as far as like other products, we have a lot that we'd like to build. As long as it's serving nurses, then we'll build it probably. We have to keep going. We had to get I don't know what the right term is, but I'll just call it profitable, which is like about to happen for us. And as far as like growth and how we look at that, if Apricot were an agency, we'd be serving over 20,000 patients daily right now. And I think we have an incredible line of sight to a substantial portion of the total addressable home healthcare market by the end of the first quarter of 25, and maybe sooner. So, just like in football, if you're OU would say, if you're big, tall, strong, and fast, we want you to come play football at OU. If you're smart, like solving hard problems and making a thank you card for nurses, then we want you at Apricot.
You are the first LP of Cortado.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about your background with Nathaniel?
Sure.
And then what gave you this conviction to invest in startup Fund One venture capital firm with this mid-continent thesis?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I've been a big fan of Nathaniel's for over a decade. He's a little younger than I am, but very well-known family, the Hardings. And as we've kind of gotten to know each other, we met through, officially through the Young Presidents Organization. I've been informed together for a long time, and have become incredibly close friends. And his family and his girls and Amanda, his wife, and we love them to death. Courtney, my wife, and I. And so he's been crazy successful at everything he's ever touched. And when he said he was going to go do a venture capital firm, I just kind of was like, yeah, that'll probably work out very well. And so he called me up during COVID and was like, all right, I'm launching it. And, he gave me the pitch and on Zoom, because stupid COVID. And then my wife and I were just like, okay. And it's like, how much you trying to raise per person? And I'd never made an investment like that before. But I believed in Nathaniel. I believed in the thesis. I think Oklahomans are capable of whatever we put our minds to. And it's obviously working. Fund 2 is kind of in the books, and Fund 3 is about to happen and be huge, I hear. So I'm proud to have been able to support my friend Nathaniel and his endeavors. And, when you bet on smart, talented, ambitious, driven people that, work for it, it usually is a pretty good investment, and I think that's about to show itself here too.
In addition to being very, very disciplined, a forward-looking, creative problem solver, you also seem to have this incredible judgment about other people and surrounding yourself with high ability, high character individuals.
I was good at choosing one woman, and I've been good at choosing friends, but I don't know about all the other stuff. But if I feel like when I'm around you that I need to step my game up, like I'm going to be attracted and drawn to that person. And if somebody is challenging my thoughts about life or business or, tech companies or, religion or politics, like if you're helping me, like I just, comfort zones are awesome places to live, but nothing grows there. And I don't want to, if I'm too comfortable or bored, then I'm not pushing myself. I'm not growing. I'm not learning. I'm not setting a good example for my son or my daughter. I'm not being the best husband that I can be, fighting for that experience and fighting to like expand your, mental capacity to learn new things and be challenged, to take risks, to be wrong, to, fail, to live in the struggle, all that stuff. Like I'm drawn to people that are like that. That's why I'm drawn to Nathaniel and all my, very best friends in this world, male and female, including my wife, certainly my wife, like make me a better human, friend, father, husband, boss, whatever, teammate. And if you're comfortable where you're at and you're not really looking to grow, then we can be friends, but I'm certainly not going to allocate any like real time to that like relationship because, I got things I want to do.
So you're very achievement oriented and motivated.
Yeah, I like winning.
But it's not so much as you want to have the biggest yacht as it is 20, 30 years from now, you want to look back and you want to say, look at all these patient lives I improved. Look at all these nurses I kept in the profession.
Was the work that I did impactful to someone else? Did it help someone else? Did it make someone else's life better? Did it change someone's life for the better? It's not the years in your life, it's the life in your years. I don't know, just, I want to be doing something that hopefully will be remembered one day. Not that will matter when I'm gone, but if you're just living a life that no one remembers 10 years after you're gone, then, what were you really doing while you're here? Hopefully you made it better for somebody. I don't know. Material things are cool. I like, not a big car guy, but I'm a pilot, so I want like a faster airplane, that goes higher and maybe has air conditioning one day. I like having space. I like having, cool toys, but I don't need a house in, Cabo or Europe, or New York City. Like I got, as long as I wake up tomorrow morning and, my dad and my brother and my wife and my kids still love me and are proud of me, and I haven't like embarrassed them or hurt them in some way with my actions. And, I've been poor before. I'm not afraid of being poor. I don't really want to go back if I have the choice. But, like I think wealth and happiness is measured a lot more in like, the lives that you've touched and the people that love you and the people that you love, way more than how much money is in your bank or how fast your car is or whatever. So, or what things that you have. So I don't know.
One follow-up from that is lots of people have big dreams, big ideas. Sometimes those big ideas are actually good ideas. But throughout your life, at everything that you've set your mind to, you've also had the discipline to chase these huge, audacious goals that you've set. Where does the discipline come from? And then how do you cultivate more of it? And whenever you catch yourself in a rut, how do you go back to these like world-class habits that you've used to get where you're at?
Like when I was a child, it was my mom and dad. She passed away when I was 24. And in high school, I had a, Hall of Fame football coach. I had a Taekwondo instructor that saw something special in me and pushed me to extract the most out of that. I had coaches in college who, no matter how good I did, it was never enough. They would never stop trying to push me to find my ceiling, and I'm not sure that I ever actually found it. But never accepted greatness as excellence, I guess is a good way to put it. And I also just happen to have the kind of personality that when you challenge me or push me or coach me hard, I tend to respond with another level of effort or skill or whatever, or motivation or drive, or you're not going to make me quit. Thanks to Schmitty for teaching me that in college. OU fans will know what I'm talking about. And then, in my professional life, I've had, business partners like, John Eccles that, if my head was getting too big, would call me out. If I'm not being disciplined, is going to call me out. If I'm not doing things that I'm supposed to be doing, they say a famous football coach said, discipline is doing what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it the way it's supposed to be done. And I've just been really lucky to have people in my lives that, for whatever reason, would call me out when I wasn't living in a disciplined manner. And I don't like disappointing people. I'm a people pleaser. So I don't know. I think it's just this whole concoction of things that, a lot of it I didn't really choose. It's just kind of what's inside of me. And like I said, I just kind of won the lottery.
So you form these deep connections and relationships with people. You really care about them. You want to do right by them. And having enough of those people in your life provides this accountability network that helps you on your hardest days push through for these exceptional levels of achievement.
Yeah, I guess that's a good way to put it. You had a guest, Rinzai Stone, who Rinzai and I have a very, very cool, now looking back on it, meaningful relationship that started in a very weird spot. Long story short, because of some of those types of friends that hold me accountable, and because of the type of person that Rinzai is, he's one of my closest friends now. Because of people like that in my life, I've been able to grow. Just like they say, if you take a plant and put it in a bigger pot, the roots will take up the size of the pot. I feel I've just had people in my life for whatever reason, plucking me out of this pot that's too small and putting me in a bigger one to make me push myself to figure out how to fill that pot. There have been a lot of people along the way. It's a really good way of putting it, some type of accountability network. That's what I've had. I don't think I set out to solve that or to have that, but that's well said.
So are you writing goals down?
I'm not good at that. I try. A good buddy of mine, Dusty Bourne, gave me for Christmas one year, several years ago, just gave me a bunch of whiteboard markers and a paper towel, and it was he writes down his goals on his mirror sometimes. And so I did that for a while. It is interesting when you write stuff down how often it comes true. It never quite comes true the way you thought it would, but it's always cool to look back and well, I did write down that I wanted this thing to happen, and now it's happened, but it's not how I thought it would happen. It took a completely different, it looks different now than I thought it would when I wrote it down. But I don't keep a journal. I write down stuff that I find motivating. I don't do New Year's resolutions. Kind of do a 3-year look back. I've kind of stolen some bits and pieces from some really smart guys and coaches that I know. And so it's am I better off today than I was a year ago? Am I happy? Am I where I thought I would be, either personally or in business or in my, whatever else? And if the answer to any of those questions is no, then it's all right, well, why? And sometimes you got to take your own medicine and be well, I screwed that up, or I didn't work hard enough here, and that's probably why this didn't happen. But usually the answer to those questions is yeah, and happy, and yes, satisfied with where I'm at. And then it's like, all right, well, where do you want to be next year? And then, but I don't really write it down. I might have to get a note or something on my phone. I'd have to look.
Well, it seems like your methodology is you verbalize your intentions and your goals to those people who are closest to you, and then you're unbelievably motivated to live up to this goal that you've voiced into existence.
I call it the click, and I didn't realize it until I started Apricot. I had this thing called the click. And it's kind of dumb, but I remember having it when I was a little kid. I remember it when I was deciding where I was going to go to play football in college. I remembered it when I went into business, and I felt it, when I met my wife. And throughout my life, I've you look back and you think oh, well, that was that, and that was that, and I recognize it this time, in my 40s. And that click is when you have some thought or idea, and then somehow a plan or an action item gets attached to it in your brain, and then it comes out of your mouth, and all of a sudden, you hear it, and it's just the click happens. And every time in my life I've heard that, it hasn't been a matter of if I would succeed or if it would work. It's just been a matter of, this sounds super conceited, but I'm not great at being humble. A lot of times my friends will tell you. It's one of the things they call me out on a lot. But when I hear it, I know, I can see the end, and I know what it's going to look like. I know how it's going to feel because I've done it before. I know that Apricot's going to be massively, wildly successful because I heard the click. And so now I know that it's faded, and now I just have to do the work to be worthy of getting it. And so you just work your ass off and try and remember to be a good person and kiss your kids and hug your wife, and it will happen. And so I don't know when or exactly how, but with Apricot, I already know.
Wow, it's really incredible seeing that level of founder conviction, and I think it helps that you have so much domain experience that there's no question of, are you adding value to each stakeholder? It's abundantly clear, and that's why you have so many patient lives under contract in such a short period of time.
Yeah, and we're very excited about where we're going. It's a whole hell of a lot of fun right now. There's an excerpt in a book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things. And it's this whole thing about this is what the struggle is. And it's a very famous tech startup book. I read a lot. And he talks about you go on vacation, but you can't enjoy it because all you can think about is the struggle, or you can't remember. You've been in a conversation for 10 minutes with somebody and you have no idea what the conversation is about because all you can think about is spitting up blood because it's so hard what you're doing. But whenever we're in that right now. We have some major obstacles we have to overcome. Starting this company is very hard. It's I'm not trying to make this sound easy because I don't know if you can cuss on this, but it's effing not. It's not easy. It's been incredibly difficult. It's been the hardest thing I've ever done. It's also the most fun I've ever had in business. It's also the most rewarding when we do have these little victories, and you start piling enough, you start winning enough days, and then you win the week, and then you win the month, and then you win the quarter, and next thing you know, you're about to win the game. And it's the harder it gets, the kind of more, I don't always smile, and I get super stressed out and can't sleep. A lot of times you just have to kind of smile at it because it's all right, I understand the arc of this thing, the ups and downs. If it's this hard, I must be really close to having some amazing breakthrough. Or if it's this difficult, we must really be about to build something crazy special that's going to change an industry or a person's life. And so, I've kind of gotten, really comfortable with that, feeling that most startup people that I've had before. And instead of, making it build anxiety or making me want to drink or, do something that I shouldn't do, to relax or to calm down or to take a pill to help me sleep or whatever, it actually gives me, a great deal of, comfort somehow. There's something, if it's this hard, we must be really close I just have to make it to the end of this workout. I just have to like push hard through this like study session to like so I can pass the test. I just have to like work a little bit harder because like success is just, I mean, it must be close. Like if it's this hard, like, it's right there. A buddy of mine's very religious and said, God won't give you anything that you can't handle.
Well, as far as startup problems go, having more customer interests than you have bandwidth to service is a very good problem to have. Most startups die from lack of product market fit. They haven't built something that's revolutionary. It's just iterative, doesn't add value to each of the stakeholders, and ultimately the market speaks. Now you still have a whole host of problems, but they're good problems. What it's like operationally trying to plug all of these gaps so that you can service the customers on your wait list as soon as possible. And how do you hire people that quickly? How do you get them up to speed? Like, what's it like operating, drinking from a fire hose?
Oh, good question. I'm in the middle of it, so I don't know that I have a great answer, but one of my advisors or investors in this company said that most startups die from suicide, not homicide. We try not to shoot ourselves in the foot. We're trying to like not make the big mistake, trying not to have any hubris, trying to not take anything for granted. Like, don't count the money until it's in the bank. Don't count the customer until the ink's dry. All those like little sayings like go a long way and like kind of help and keep your feet on the ground. And like it's kind of comes back to like my friends and my family and the people that my inner circle that like they're gonna make sure I'm keeping my feet on the ground as they know what I'm capable of if I do. Hiring is like a whole other discussion. How much of it do you keep at home? How much of it are you gonna let be remote? Like which positions can you handle as remote? Which is just a huge part of our world right now that I hate. But, fortunately, like it's happened, which has opened the door to talent like all over the world for startups in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, where there's not just like a ton of tech talent. Finding designers incredibly difficult here. We've actually been pretty fortunate on the engineering front, but, CSMs, product people. I'm super, super lucky to have like an awesome, lead engineer, an awesome head of product. We've lucked into some candidates that I'm not sure, maybe just from hearing about us from someone else. It helps to be written about a lot. It helps to do stuff like this. So thank you for having me. Like you got to have some non-negotiables. You can't just say yes to everybody because they're this and they're willing to do it. Like that's not how you build the right culture. That's not how you find the right team. That's not how you get people to follow you and work 24 hours a day 7 days a week which right now is what it takes. That's where we're at. It's like it's not going away anytime soon. The pressure is only going to get higher and more public, and the risk of failure of not succeeding will be even more public tomorrow than it is today. I don't know, you just kind of look for those people with it.
I mean, it seems similar to your ability to assess value and character and competence and all of these other people, like throughout every other domain of your life. It's just, hiring is just a very specific role that they need to
I'll just say, like, we spent a lot of time me telling stories about me and how this all happened and everything, but I'll tell you, like, Apricot isn't even alive today if it's not for Amanda and Zach on my team. Amanda Turk, our head of product, is like incredible. I feel like I work for her, honestly. Like my team, like my inner circle team, them and Zach Mays, our lead engineer, visionary architect engineer. Like we would be absolutely nowhere without those two. Like all the willpower and want to and whatever that I have would be completely useless without their knowledge and expertise. So just like building my friendships and relationships, like I've been very intentional about finding the right leadership and right people to like start this with, who get it, who understand it, who want it the same as I do. And then whenever they're tired or hurting or need a break, like being the the oak that they can like count on, like I'm going to be there. Like, take some time off. It'll be okay. Like, we'll figure it out. And so, like, I mean, I'm nothing without the people in my life. Absolutely nothing. And it's no different building a business. Like, your business is nothing. Like, you are not your business. You know, it's the product, it's the people, it's the entire team, because I couldn't do this on my own.
How do you handle difficult conversations? So I'm thinking primarily within an employment context, there's something that an employee could have done better, but it could also be in life. There's all these little micro frictions that you have in any relationship. And it seems like you've had some way of learning how to accelerate those hard conversations.
Well, it just seems obvious to me that you just say the hard thing first. If somebody's, if you're a salesperson and you're not performing and you're missing your quotas, then, hey, sit down, we need to talk, and here's why we're going to talk. And just call it out up front. Like, don't beat around the bush. Don't try to be passive aggressive, no matter how hard it is to say that hard thing. Like, people know if you're not being honest with them. Whether or not they like choose to verbalize it and believe it themselves is, up to them. But you just have to, just be authentic and honest. And here's why we're talking. And, you tell me if I'm not right. And you tell me what you would do if you were me. Most people will be like, yeah, I get it. Like, I should do better, or I'm not making the stops, or I didn't make enough calls, or, I don't know, I didn't return those phone calls to those patients. Like, when you're being disciplined in your life and in your job, like, you don't have to have those conversations. And if you're working at a company that's disciplined and lives their life that way, like we do at Apricot, and you're not fitting in, like, we can just talk about it. Like, maybe this isn't a good fit for you. Like, hey, instead of just me being like, fire you and get out of here and you never want to talk to you again, like, hey, this person, like, gave of themselves. They, like, gave it a shot that, didn't work out. Like, doesn't mean you have to, like, treat them like crap. You just, like, hey, hold their hand, give them a hug. All right, let's help find you something else. I have a massive network in this city and town and state. Like, let me call some friends. Like, you might be a great fit over at X, Y, and Z. Let me make a call for you. Like, let me give you a letter of recommendation. Like, I hired them. Who really made a mistake, them or me? And so sometimes it's personal. If someone, like, does something on purpose and, like, makes it personal, but, as a leader, like, it can never be you that did that. Sometimes, business things happen or situations change, and it means someone's not going to have a spot anymore. There's only, in football, this is probably where it all comes from. There's only 11 starting spots on offense, and I was an offensive player, and there's only one tight end usually. So there can only be one starter, and, so, like, why is that guy starting over me? Like, I never had to have I've never heard a coach have to explain to someone why they weren't the starter. And sometimes the answer in the NFL was, they just got a $10 million a year contract. We're going to get our value out of that investment. Yes, you're playing better right now, but you're not going to start, and that's why. And it's like, hell, all right, I get it. You just treat people like adults, I guess.
Well, Trent, thank you so much for taking the time to share about your incredible life story, what you attribute to luck. We all know is just an incredible amount of dedication, perseverance, creativity. You really are an inspiration to all of us. Cortado is unbelievably lucky to have you as a limited partner in Fund 1 and Fund 2. And we are even luckier to be first institutional investors in Apricot Technologies.
And the only one so far.
We're just so proud of what you're doing, improving quality of care for patients, nurses' lives, but also the economic opportunity really is incredible. Thank you for everything that you're doing, man.
No, thanks for having me. Thanks for
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Midcon Markup. Please hit like and subscribe for more episodes.